I'm hoping to get a lot of writing done in the coming weeks. Ideally, I'm hoping that in the coming months, I'll be able to start releasing some pretty cool, like, short stories, but I can't make any promises about that yet. I'm a little too early in the process. What that does mean is that in the meantime, I may be thinking up and making more Particularly, I tried to keep my writing advice to things that I've been thinking about and things that I feel like I might have a new idea on. This is mostly because I don't think I'm really qualified to necessarily be teaching people how to do things, but I think I have some ideas that have come to me as I've been trying to write myself and as I've been learning. Maybe some things I wish I knew better as I started writing. After all, the only qualification I technically have is a video I made back in 2020. Honestly, it wasn't too bad. Although this video, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit and dissect that a little bit. This video is going to be about headcanons and story analysis and just a bunch of wild concepts that are honestly a little bit bigger than I can properly handle, but I've had some thoughts about it. I've had some things that I think I could bring to the conversation that might be of value. A very interesting and like common conversation that people often have when it comes to writing, film, or just any particular talent is how qualified is a reviewer to review a work of art or a type of food or just any talent that they don't personally have. I think there is a lot of qualification to these people because often being able to dissect something, break something down to its components and see if they work well is often a different talent or skill from being the person who can make those things entirely. As someone who wants to write and make movies someday, I can very easily go to a movie and watch the movie and have my own personal perspective on it and personally dissect it to what I believe it's saying and not what I believe it is, which could be entirely different from what a movie critic would say. I don't think either of our opinions would be inherently wrong. It would just be two different perspectives on the same thing. They would have the perspective of someone who watches a lot of movies and asks a lot of different questions about those movies than I do. I'm asking questions about what I liked from a particular movie and how I can apply that to my own work. A critic is asking questions of what is working, what is not working. How can this film be stronger, or what's holding this film back from being the best film ever? Or the best questions that could probably be asked are, what are the pros and cons to this movie? I think that's a pretty important distinction to figure out. I think that's a pretty important understanding that two people can have very valid opinions and not see eye to eye. Because on the other hand, we have the critic and we have the filmmaker, and then we have the casual moviegoer who also has an equally valid opinion. And the questions they're asking are not, how do I apply this or what is holding this film back, but more, am I entertained? And I think all three perspectives are valuable. There's a reason why there is an entire job for being a writing editor. If you want to publish a book, it's very wise to get an editor, maybe even a couple of editors who can edit different things. And this is because I believe literary analysis is a completely different skill from writing. There may be a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, they're their own things. And that's why you need both an author and an editor to really make something special. If really all you needed to publish a book for editing was to get a second opinion on it, you could ask just about anyone. And why would you pay just about anyone? And I bring all of this up because I want to make an understanding that there is a skill to being able to look at a story and to break it down to different parts and different components and different ideas. That doesn't necessarily make a movie critic says about a movie better or more valid than what a casual moviegoer takes out of the movie, but they're just two different things. And this is often where you start to see things crop up, like canon versus headcanon. Canon being the things that are established in the story that are objectively true. The story has absolutely said this is a thing in the story. Our main character has hair, right? That's an objective thing that you can't really change about the story. Now, headcanon is something that is not objectively stated in the story that people fill in the gaps for. Because ultimately with writing, if it's good writing, then you're gonna fill in a lot of gaps yourself. Sometimes that's even the fun of writing, or the fun of reading, I should say. I think a classic example is of Hamlet and how people always wonder if he was insane the entire time or if he was highly intelligent. It is not explicitly stated, and yet we can fill in those gaps ourselves, and that will change our view of that story. And often more modern examples that are very classic is often things like people who ship two characters together. Maybe they're not really together in the story, but they think they would get along. Their headcanon is that maybe after the story they start to see that they have so much in common and they start to pair up. These are classic examples that aren't really harmful to anything and can even provide fun and enjoyment to the piece of work that you're experiencing. However, I see particularly today that there's a bit of a departure from that. I feel like it's super common for me these days to be on the internet and find some video that's like,
this video is objectively saying this thing. This character in this story is absolutely what I say they are. There is no way that the author did not intend to make this character absolutely fascist.
And hey, if that improves your enjoyment of the story, all the power to you. If something that's not explicitly stated is something that you can relate to or gravitate to or make you think or make you see something in a different perspective, even though it may not be what the author originally intended with the story, that's awesome. That's just part of appreciating artwork, is seeing how artwork speaks to you. I feel like there is a great problem though when you start taking your experience with a piece of art and take something that isn't explicitly stated and you start acting as if it is explicitly stated, as if it is the way everyone else should experience that artwork. Wouldn't it be such a travesty to have a story like Hamlet be ruined by someone being like,
I've been studying Hamlet all my life, and there is no way that he's not insane. He's absolutely insane and incredibly gay. There is so much gay energy inside Hamlet, and he is absolutely insane. Clearly, obviously, this means that Shakespeare was homophobic.
Clearly that's wrong. Clearly that's not the intended way to look at the story, and that's not even a very fun way to look at the story compared to the other way of looking at it of maybe you think he's crazy, maybe I think he's just smart. Now we can have a really intelligent and fun conversation about that. Maybe we don't agree with each other at the end, but maybe we can grow some further insight about maybe something Shakespeare was trying to say by making Hamlet a character who could be viewed with such a way. Maybe Hamlet doesn't know if he's crazy or smart. Maybe Shakespeare was talking about how we don't really know what's within ourselves. In a lot of ways, I could see how Hamlet doesn't see a lot within himself because he's so divided on what he should do throughout the whole play. This is why I start the video by talking about literary analysis, because often we can all have different opinions on the same thing, and that doesn't make any of our opinions invalid, but it can be very helpful to ask around, get other opinions maybe someone who has been trained and has learned about analysis and has practiced that for a really, really long time, maybe they have a good point that you could listen to. Maybe you have a good point they could listen to. Instead of trying to find an objective truth out of art, maybe being able to find different ideas on a thing that we all love can help us appreciate that thing a whole lot more. But no, clearly, I should have realized your headcanon is sacred and not to be trifled with. Clearly, there is nothing more to take away from such a legendary and amazing play other than crazy character was crazy and maybe even gay. Now we should cancel Shakespeare for making his gay character insane. Now that's an extreme example, but I feel like we see a lot of examples of that in modern media today. And I feel like if we just took a step back and understood like, hey, I have a headcanon, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that makes my experience with a story better because I have a headcanon. Maybe it makes it easier to talk about with other people because it's a headcanon. I feel like particularly people are quick to jump to conclusions about what a theme is, which I think is such a travesty because I think some of the best stories are stories where you can pull out multiple themes of them. Something that really speaks out to you that is completely different from what speaks out to someone else. I feel like you miss a lot of opportunities to grow and learn if you view the world with that kind of mindset. Now, maybe that's just telling of the state of the world now, that if you have a different opinion from me, then clearly this is war and we cannot respect each other because who has time for things like mutual respect and like love and kindness? No sir, we can't have that. I'm ready to see you on the battlefield. Bring your buckler, bring your spear. I don't know why we're bringing bucklers. That's kind of impractical. I'll see your kite shield, I'll see your spear, and I'll see your horse, and we'll crash our horses together, see who wins. That's terrible battle strategy. I don't care. Like and subscribe.